There is nothing wrong with your television set. Do not attempt to adjust the picture. We are controlling transmission.
Sweet. All right, Hunter Man, what do you think?
All right, let's take it away. Go, just keep going.
Is that it?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Here we are tonight, episode 99.
99.
So we were talking about this during the week, and it is the month of June, and this is the month that we started Mudhole Live in.
Yeah.
So it was originally called like Mudhole Presents Facebook Live or something like that.
Yeah.
We started that in June 6th of 2016 was the first episode.
Okay.
So we are 98 episodes later, and here we are for episode 99. We almost hit it like
Almost right on.
for 100.
Right on the anniversary. Huh?
But there was a lot that happened in the last however many years that is. 7 years, I guess, right?
Yeah.
So a lot has happened since we had that. Hunter, you've been here for a bunch of them.
Most. Definitely most.
I think we were talking, there was a stint there where I had Gary hosting, and then Gary moved on, went to another job, and then you came in with a little bit of force, had to,
Yeah,
really.
you know me.
yeah, right, And, we upped your, I think you signed, what, like a $2.5 million contract, something like that.
Yeah.
So
Most of that's already gone because of the credit card. But
well, that was part of the deal, though.
Oh, I didn't see that
When
part.
you get the big buck, well, you didn't read the fine print.
Yes.
So,
Shame on me.
yeah, so Hunter's here, and I will say that I, knock on wood, have not missed an episode yet. So
Yeah,
this is
you've been here for all.
This is all 99 for me, and we're doing 100 episode next month.
Yep.
So what are we going to talk about tonight, though?
So tonight we've got all about travel rods. So we're getting into summertime.
Yep.
Most people are starting to either plan or even go on their summer vacations, wherever that might be.
Right.
Might be taking a trip to the Caribbean, might be going to the Keys, might be going to, who knows, maybe Texas or any place that has access to water to fish.
Yeah.
Whether that be a 3-piece travel rod, a 2-piece travel rod.
Sure.
You're even going to talk about multi-piece fly rod.
Yeah, we've got a 4-piece fly blank. We got a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
There's also, I kind of forgot a little bit about this one, but when I was checking through, we have a 6-piece.
We do.
The Native.
We do.
The Native series in MHX, there's a couple models in that series that come in a 6-piece. So when you are really trying to hide a fishing rod from the family, a 6-piece fly blank, you can hide it in a minivan and nobody will know.
Yeah.
I promise. Wake up with a little bit of headache. The family goes to, Disney or goes on a hike or something, and you can sneak away.
Yep, exactly.
Not that you would ever do that.
Yeah, but if you decide to.
But if. So, yes.
So yeah, we're going to be talking about obviously how to or what we would suggest for these travel rods. We're going to talk about how to spine them because that's a common question that gets brought up is, how do we spine a multi-piece rod blank? And also we're going to talk about how to wrap ferrules. And then last but not least, we're going to talk about guide placement, especially as it relates to maybe a guide that is close proximity to a ferrule.
Oh yeah, well that's always throws most rod builders for a curveball, at least on the first time, because we talk about how important guide spacing is, and we talk about run over to the resources page, and we've got the guide spacing there listed, and then you sit down to do it, and you realize now your guide is falling on a ferrule or very close to a ferrule, and we are going to walk y'all through that, and of course, with always, it's not that big of a deal, and we'll show you why.
Yep.
Got a little bit of housekeeping.
Always.
So for those that are in the fishing industry because ICAST is coming up. It is unfortunately not a consumer show, so you can't come and have Hunter sign autographs for you unless your media is there. We have a lot of wonderful professional rod builders that come and see us every year. Of course, Stuart's going to be there, who runs the B2B and the wholesale and all that stuff. So if you do have a rod building business and you are a professional rod builder, that is an event that you can come down here to sunny Florida and stand in the air conditioning and talk about rod building.
Yeah.
Among all the other cool stuff at ICAST. So we're going to be in booth 2015. It's a really, the last couple years they've upgraded, to say the least. So there'll be a number of different rod building demos at the booth. We're going to have a lot of cool builders in the building come by, say, hey, are you going at all?
I'll be there Thursday.
Okay, so you're going to be there Thursday.
Yeah.
I will be there Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday.
Cool.
It's a cool thing. If you can make it, come on down. And it's fun.
Sweet.
All right, new products.
New products. So, first on the list here, and I see you've got our 5-piece burnishing tool set down there by you. So
I was trying to sneak away with it because I like it.
This is a new product that we literally just put on the website today. It's hot off the press. We have stock coming in tomorrow.
I was going to say, it's so hot.
It's
stock
so hot.
is tomorrow.
Yeah. So you guys can hit that email when available button on the website page. And like I said, stock will be available tomorrow. But for the time being,
yes,
it's up on the website. You can check it out. So this is a 5-piece burnishing tool set that we actually print in-house on our 3D resin printers.
Yes.
So, we're able to put this one out there fairly quickly. We have 4 that are fairly similar. They just have different heads on the top, different edges, different configurations there. And then last but not least, we have the larger version here, which is great for your longer butt wraps, thread wraps, etc. So definitely check these out. Affordable price, good tool to add, a good tool set, I should say, to add to your arsenal. Burnishing tools are always something that, if you got one, you might as well have none, because it's one of those little tools that kind of gets lost on your workbench. Pick up this set of 5, and that way you always have one within arm's reach. So definitely check these out.
Yeah, and the cool thing about this is we sat down, and when I mean we, like Mudhole we, and some other rod builders sat down and really put everybody's heads together on, I'd like to see one with this angle, or I'd like to see one that has a point like this, and I'd like to see one that has a flat edge like that, and I'd like to see one that has. So that's why there's 5 pieces.
Yeah.
Right? Getting everybody to agree on one tool was never even in the cards. We knew that this was going to be a set. Mm-hmm. So the cool thing is being able to produce it in-house, turning it around quick, made here in the USA.
Correct.
Here at Rod Building World Headquarters is really, really cool because it's something that, got a lot of people's input, and it's going to be, I think, really, really cool to have on your rod building bench.
Yep. You can never have enough burnishing tools. So, and then also in the new product category, we recently released, I want to say, was it earlier this week? Was it this past Monday or last?
I don't know what you're talking about, Hunter.
What's that? Last Thursday, sorry. Thanks, Phil. Signature Series Staff Pick Rod Kits.
Right.
Which is a mouthful. But if you guys are familiar, the past couple months we've released a selection of Terry Scroggins Signature Series kits.
Yep.
We did Matt Steffen.
Yes, we did.
And then last but not least, we did, I've got 3 kits.
Uh-huh.
You have 3,
Yes.
and so does Jake. He
So
also
does
has
Jake.
3.
Yes.
So, and it's a great selection, in
It
my
is.
opinion, of a good mix of salt water, good mix of fresh water. You even have a fly rod mixed
There's
in
a fly
there.
rod in there.
So,
Yep.
whether you're inshore, bass fishing, fly fishing, no matter what, there's probably a kit in there that's going to fit the bill for you. So,
Right.
It's a full rod kit, guides, grips, reel seat, blank, all included.
Yep.
One kit.
Exactly how we spec'd it out, because there are, there's some unique pieces and parts that are on each one of our kits. Hunter uses a reel seat that I don't like, but we've been over that if you've seen the last 98 episodes. No, it's the Fuji ACSM. Then I use a reel seat that I love, which is the VSS with the grip and the cap. I put it together the way I want it, right?
Right.
Jake has a cool guide set on one of his. He's got a certain handle on one. His, I think, is actually guaranteed to help you grow more hair as well. So that is another key feature of his kits.
Definitely.
So it's a really cool kind of mixture of them. Some of mine are a little more geared to saltwater. There is a fly one. You've got a lot of bass stuff in there. Jake's got his famous drain rod in there. If you watched any of his stuff, I think he coined it. If it's raining, he's going draining. So at least we know where he's at. If it's raining and we can't find Jake, at least we know where he's at. So he's got a bass rod in there, but then he's also got a rod that he went and was hooked up to a big tarpon on the beach here in New Smyrna not too long ago. So there's a huge mix in there, right? And there's something for everybody. There's no ice kits in that one, but we already have ice kits covered. And there's only so much ice fishing that we all have done here in Florida. So
Right.
we let Buzz Butters handle that one.
Yep.
So we always direct that to him. So.
And also, I think you might have mentioned there the rod recipes, the blueprints are actually,
Yes.
we have them on the website page for each rod kit,
Right.
and that gives you guide spacing. It gives you the handle length that we personally use on our rods.
Yeah.
Obviously, you guys can use something different if you want to.
Yeah.
But guide spacing, all that info is on that product page on the website.
Yeah.
So.
And Jeffrey, it kind of mentioned there, so no mullet required to fish Jake's rod. No, you don't have to, but be aware that if you put the last bit of finish on that mullet rod and you go to sleep and you wake up with a mullet, that we cannot be responsible for that.
No liability.
So,
No.
no, not at all. All that aside, why are they really here? We need to talk about giveaways.
We do. So, yeah.
Oh, and I think actually somebody mentioned, we got to call you out on this one because you're hiding. Edward, who is a regular on the show, he says, wow, things are getting professional at 99. Hunter doesn't have his, quote, water tonight. Well, Edward, he does. So you can take Hunter.
Refreshing as usual.
Yeah, you can take Hunter out of Tennessee, but you can't take the Tennessee out of Hunter. Tennessee water, there's just
something like that.
Something about it.
Yep.
Something about it. All right, so continue, sir.
Yes,
we're giving stuff away.
Giveaways. So first giveaway of the night is going to be a core hand wrapper, which we haven't done that one too often. So that's going to be a great giveaway.
Because it's new.
It is very new.
Ish.
Ish, yeah. Second giveaway is going to be the CRB Pro blank extension tool set.
What you got right down?
Voila.
Yep.
Let's make sure these don't.
Cool. Anodized aluminum.
Yeah.
Blue. Comes in a cool case.
Cool stuff. Cool stuff.
Allows you to do multiple and varying blank diameters.
Yep.
More so than the last one.
So if you guys deal with any two-piece rod blanks,
Yeah.
this.
You know what? And the one thing that I wanted to mention tonight, and I forgot, that has a little collar on it that snaps into a rod dryer.
It does. It does.
Phil, taking all our rod dryers.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Grand prize for tonight is going to be a travel rod kit.
Yes.
That we're going to sort of kind of let you piece together based on how you fish, what you fish for. So I know you'll work with the lucky winner to come up with that kit.
Of course. And of course, we'll put it at the bottom of the screen. Well, we won't. Phil will. If you win a prize tonight, or if you have a question or a comment, we'll read it. We promise. Live@mudhole.com is how to find us. So that's, if you win, put it in there. Sometimes I charge other random things to Hunter's credit card in a giveaway. So just remember, live@mudhole.com. That email does get checked, and you're welcome to send an email if you should choose to do so. All right, let's get into it.
Cool.
We need to spine a blank. And I gotta laugh. Hunter had some fan mail recently talking about spining a rod blank.
I did.
And it's important. And I think we would agree that it's not necessarily 100% required for certain things.
Correct.
I still check it. Even, this is one of those like, get your popcorn out, we'll let everybody argue, right? but I'm still checking it. And maybe it's just like those old habits die hard. But we're going to talk about it. We're going to go over it. And things I always build on a spine, and some things I don't. Like big flip and stick, because I'm setting the hook, at 12 to 6, that gets it. If any of the offshore rod type stuff where I'm doing, a lot of pulling, much more vertical, I don't want that extra torque on it. On a fluke rod or an MB 873, am I still checking it? I'm still checking it.
Yeah, of course.
I'm probably still going to build on it because I have confidence in it. But remember, when you're casting, you're not casting like this, and you're not setting the hook like this.
Yeah.
Right? You're doing one of these, you're doing this, you're doing that, you're setting the hook like this. So you're going to be off the spine even if you build on the spine. So we go over certain things here. That's part of custom rod building. But I did want to mention it since it's such a hot topic.
Hot
topic. And we're also talking about spining travel blanks tonight. So let's talk about that.
Let's do it. And also, we kind of need to also talk about, blank selection, what's out there and what's available in the multi-piece category for rod blanks. Specifically for MHX, we have the TFW series.
Yes.
We also have the TR travel rod series.
And we get a lot of questions about that.
We do.
So keep elaborating on that, because I think I know where you're going. I think everybody's going to want to hear this.
Yeah, definitely. So if you guys are familiar with the SJ series, spin jig series of MHX rod blanks, honestly, the SJ842 is probably one of the most popular and most versatile blanks that MHX has to offer.
That's to put it lightly.
Very. The TR MHX series is actually modeled after the spin jig series.
Yeah.
So essentially, we took the SJ blanks, comprised a two-piece selection of those that series, and that's how the TR series came to be. For the TFW series, those are modeled after the S series, which is just the spinning, essentially, series. So if you guys are familiar with the spinning or the spin jig series and like those actions and powers, you're going to find a lot of overlap into the TR and the TFW series as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would venture to say, for some of the lighter stuff that I do, this rod right here has been to Mexico. It's been to Belize, and catching bonefish and permit and things like that on lightweight flats jigs. We're talking about an 1/8 ounce or a 3/16 ounce jig, making, not real long casts, but making average casts to spooky fish, 2,500 size reel, 10-pound braid. That is going to be the TFW 842-3. So this rod still has enough kind of oomph to it, but it's still light enough so that you can throw those really light jigs at things. The TFW is also a great one if you're going to go, chase around maybe some smallmouth. If you're going to go maybe trout fishing, and you can drop down. I think there's a TFW 841. So the 1 power drops you down again. It's going to be a little more of a moderate fast. So if you're throwing, like a little road runner or like a small lure for trout in a stream, the TFWs is where you want to live.
Yeah.
If you're going like heavy cover for bass, or if you are flying or driving to Tennessee or Texas or something, you're throwing a bigger swim bait or you're doing things like that, you're going to want to be in the TR,
Definitely.
90, they have like a 903, they have things like that. That's going to be something that you're going to be able to, put on your bait caster with 50-pound braid and horse a fish out of cover. So that's kind of where Hunter was going with that, and those are a few recommendations that will get you where you want to go, and make sure you get the right one. And of course, always shoot us a message if you guys ever have any questions. So,
and real quick, multi-piece doesn't, or I should say, travel rods does not necessarily mean it has to be a 3-piece.
No.
Which all of those, the TFW and the TRs, are 3-piece.
Yes.
We also have in the CRB series, we have multi-different links and actions and powers in a 2-piece version, which still classify as a travel rod. So if you want to look for a little more economical option or even maybe a color blank,
Right.
you could look for a CRB 2-piece that would fit the bill.
This is not one of them.
Okay.
But it is a 2-piece. So this is a rod that Jake has been working on. He's got some Fuji high frames on here. We'll talk about this one in a little bit because we're going to talk about the ferrule wraps on this. But this is a 2-piece. This comes out of the NEPS family. I'm not sure. He's got the decal somewhere. But I can tell it is a 2-piece out of the NEPS. Well, of course I can tell it's a 2-piece. But out of the NEPS because of the satin black color here. And this one probably, with the old wiggle that everybody does at Walmart, this is going to be kind of that SJ842 type feel, but would be probably a, NEPS medium, and then a fast. So an MF. This is a little heavier than an MLF, but yeah.
Gotcha.
So, like you said, still 2-piece, still multi-piece. So you're good.
Yeah. Yep. So, I'm glad you brought up the NEPS 2-piece models because those are
I love 'em.
somewhat overlooked.
I love them.
But yeah, so between CRB, MHX, even in the native series, we have some 6-piece options, right? So
Yeah, that's the hide from family packable.
Yep.
We call it.
Yep, what you mentioned earlier. So, those that can go in a suitcase, if you're flying or.
Backpack,
you don't-
suitcase.
Yeah, you don't even need like a
diaper bag,
like a travel, tube or anything like that. Can
Right.
literally just go in your luggage if you, want
Yeah,
to.
for sure. I mean, that gets really, really small. So if you do happen to go up to, I ventured up to North Carolina last summer, and the wife and mother-in-law went hiking, and I went hiking, but with a fly rod and waders on. So if you wanted to do both, that 6-piece, you could break that thing down, put it in a backpack, and still manage with, your family and loved ones and whatever, without having to worry about having a 9-foot fly rod around that somebody's going to probably take into and turn it into a 6-piece rod, but not in the way that it's intended to be. So you got to be careful with that. But
So yeah, depending on where you're traveling and how you're traveling, like obviously if you're driving, you got a little more leeway with the length of your sections. But
Right.
even if you are flying, I would say as long as you're at least have a 4-piece, I don't think many 2-piece would cut it. And
no, it would
depends
have
on
to
length.
be, and it's interesting you mentioned that because I forgot about this. Years ago, when I first started here, I built a 2-piece travel spinning rod for the wife, and I had to build it as a 6.6, and it was a 2-piece spinning blank. That we were able to get in a case and carry it on, not check it.
Right.
I refuse to check anything like that. So the 6.6, I think, made it under, I want to say it had to be like 37 inches or 39 inches. It was like a really weird length that the airlines have. It's a linear inch thing. But it was a 2-piece and it was a 6.6, and I think that one made it. Now, since then, we've got the 3-piecers. So this is the rod that we take, and this being a 7-footer, but it comes down to 3 pieces. So, we'll see what that is. Now, one thing you do have to keep in mind that some people don't. We didn't even talk about some of this stuff, and I just like how it comes up. If you do the math on a 7-foot rod blank, which is 84 inches, do not just assume that it's 84 inches divided by 3 and build you a rod case or buy a rod case. Because this rod section here is a 3-piece, and this is 30 inches, okay? Remember, because you got a ferrule going on here, all right? So you got a little ferrule here that disappears inside of the section in front of it that you got to account for. So I've unfortunately had some people run into that. We had somebody that recently built a travel rod to go to Hawaii that maybe didn't account for that, but we saved it just in time. So not all, remember, multi-piece rods, you can't just assume that this 84-inch rod blank is going to be 84 inches divided by 3. So please take that into account. And plus, you're putting a fighting butt on one, you're putting a tip top on one, so you know, that 30 inches is going to be more than okay on most airlines, if not all. I'm not speaking for those folks, but I've carried it on numerous times, so that's not an issue.
Cool.
Cool.
So let's talk about spining a multi-piece rod.
Let's do that. All right, so that one wasn't like real spiny. Of course, this one's got a tip top on it, but that'll be okay. I always start with the tip section, and I do them individually. This one's got guides on it. I'm not sure who put these guides on here. They're just the micro banded on here. So I'm going to put it on a flat surface. We're going to deflect this rod blank, and we're just going to roll it. That one's got a guide on it, but that one I can already tell is right. So whether this was me or Jake, good job. So this one is just, you go to roll it and it wants to not come out of that groove, right? It's like you got to force it and then it wants to kind of snap back. You see it kind of down there at the guide. Justin, you see this guide here on the table? Give me a real tight one there. Uh-huh. Well, you got that 12X going. Cool. So I'm trying to roll it out of the groove, but it wants to fight it back. See how it wants to fight it? Kind of roll it out, and it wants to fight it back. So that would technically be on the inside of the spine. Okay, you can back it off there. And you can see where I've got this deflected. I've got the tip about 90 degrees from the surface of the table, okay? You don't need to go any more than that. And just be careful when you get there. And then with your right hand, I'm right-handed, so I just add a little deflection there. This is something that's really, really good when you have these really small blanks. You know, we have a great piece of equipment called the spine finder. But when you're dealing with some of these really, really small rod blanks, I like it to do it. I just like to do it on the table, really delicately. This is the second section down on this same fly blank, okay? It's going to be a lot harder to get the same amount of deflection out of this, right? This one is also good. Now that I've done two sections, I'm actually going to put them together, and I'm going to check my work, right? Not often does it show incorrectly after you put it together, but sometimes it'll be a little touchy. But this one's still good. Now, if you don't already have guides on it, what I will do is use a China marker that I swear I had. Here it is. Mm-hmm. And I'll actually, Justin, I'm going to slide over here just a little bit. So what I will do is I'll deflect the rod blank, and I'll stand close to the rod blank. I'll deflect it, kind of make sure it's kind of where it needs to be, and then I'll take my left hand off and rest it against my chest like that. Make sure that it's where it needs to be. See, somebody already marked this here. And then you can mark it with a piece of tape and a mark like that, or I just keep it deflected against my chest. Got a little mark there, and now we're good to go. Otherwise, if you're trying to hold it and do this, and here, Hunter, would you mark that for me and whatever, it just allows me not to put a whole lot of pressure on it. I can use my chest as my left hand, and then hold that and make a mark just like that. So that's an easy way to do that, especially on these really, really short sections. If you're doing it on a longer blank, just either work off of the floor or a lower table or something like that. Don't do it on carpet. Don't do it on like tile floor with grout and stuff. You can put down like a cutting board or something, or a piece of cardboard from one of the boxes that we send or something like that. You want like a smooth surface, and you don't want to damage the blank. So this workbench is good for that, especially for multi-piece. And then again, like I said, I will take and put each section together on this fly blank. Pretty much the two tip sections are all you're going to get out of it. You really, really have to wrench on that third section of this rod blank, and this is only a 7-weight. So, if it's a 3 or a 4-weight, you can get down into that third section and probably get a little spine out of it. But I would then put it all together and then spine it. Just don't go crazy if you don't have a ferrule wrap on it yet. So, and we'll tell you why you need to put ferrule wraps on it for that. That'll be a good segue here. So we do need to do a giveaway. Let me check here to make sure that we don't have
Any questions?
Yeah, we've got a couple that were coming in as a spine and pieces, things like that. I just want to make sure that we're not missing. And I do notice that the guys in the war room are throwing up questions as we go here. So I'm kind of, I will say, Jason, this is a great point. He said he needs a travel rod set, light, medium, and heavy, in a nice travel case. Interested in seeing what can be built. Jason, I couldn't agree with you more. Like, just put it all together, maybe do a couple different colors based on which one is light, medium, and heavy, and you'll be ready to rock for any family outing that you don't want to be a part of. This is actually a pretty good question. Jack, I'm curious about the sensitivity in a multi-piece rod. Jack, if this was 1984 or 89, I would be a little more cautious in terms of how well does a multi-piece rod cast versus a one-piece? How sensitive is it versus a one-piece? All that stuff. With the slimmer ferrule technology and stuff that's in all of these MHX blanks that we have, and even from CRB all the way through the highest end blank that we have, it's not like a bamboo rod or something where you're gluing a metal ferrule, or the old fiberglass stuff too even had it. You're not gluing a metal ferrule onto each male and female end and then having to fit it together and do all that. That turns into a mess. I mean, I would be willing to bet that if we had the same model, if I took a two-piece SJ842 and a one-piece SJ842, built them the same and blindfolded you and took you out and had you fish them, I don't really think, I don't think you're going to be able to tell. And I'm being serious. We fish high-end four-piece fly rods, high-end two-piece fly rods, and there's still some one-piece fly rods out there floating around. Can you tell a little bit of a difference? Maybe, but that's in a fly rod that has a very different flex and build profile. I have never been able to tell a difference from fishing this three-piece and catching, or my buddy, Jason, who fishes this three-piece in Belize in Mexico. He's going there in July. He fishes a very similar blank here in the States with me to catch a bonefish permit, and then he takes this one down to Belize. I mean, granted, it's a different blank model, but he never has any I got to fish that three-piece, and I just really don't want to.
Yeah, I completely
He never
agree.
has that.
They, like you said, the technology, the designs for multi-piece blanks, whether it's a two-piece, a three-piece, a six-piece, doesn't matter. The technology over the past couple decades has improved so greatly that, where you used to have kind of a dead spot where that ferrule would be, that's just not a thing anymore. These blanks are so well designed and they fish so well, you would literally think it's a one-piece.
Yeah, and they fit together really well. It's not a situation where you have, in the old ones, when you first started putting them together, they didn't have the tapers right. There would be knocking, where you would have the male ferrule section would actually be knocking inside of the section above it. During casting, you could hear it clicking. It was a mess all around. But it got it done for the time. That stuff is long gone. Yeah. That stuff is really long gone. So, all right, cool. So, we probably need to give something away.
We do. So, first giveaway of the night is going to be the Core hand wrapper.
All right.
Which, if y'all are not familiar with, it's a hand wrapper that we recently introduced a few months back for any builders that travel a lot, or just want to do repairs on the go, or want something to. Oh, look at that! We have one. Imagine
look
that.
At this. Phil, man, earning those bucks.
So
those medium bucks.
Very compact design. Hopefully I get a good angle on that there. So you can see very small footprint. This is the additional stand it comes with. We made sure this thing is very stable. Obviously very good price point at 35 bucks for the wrapper. Really, really easy to use. Great for a beginning rod builder, or like I said, somebody that's on the go. Sorry, I got a little bit out of frame there, my bad. Anyway, let's see who the
All right.
the winner is.
Run that thing. Now remember, if Sean Chaney or Mudhole wins,
Oh, we saw James Joyner in there.
oh, Jay's in there. He just can't get away.
Tim Berg
Nice.
out of Facebook.
Telling
Tim
you,
Berg.
Tim Berg. They
Congrats.
gave you an easy one
Yeah,
to start you off.
We'll see what
Look
the,
at you.
the other winners are.
Yeah. All right, live at mudhole.com, Mr. Tim Berg. Fantastic. I do want to touch on this one here really quick. Where'd it go? I just saw one talking about the Ferrules wearing. Yep, tomorrow. How do they wear after years? So Ferrules will wear in, okay? And it's not a lot, all right? So it's not like your 842 is going to become an 832 anytime soon, okay, when these Ferrules wear in. But they will wear in a little bit. Now, there are some blank manufacturers over the years that the color of the ferrule section is different, okay? So like this is the ferrule section, and they might not have it painted or something like that. MHX and CRB do not do that. And to be honest with you, the blank finish, I think, adds a little grippiness, sort of, to it. So it's all of the blanks are designed to fit together as their final piece. It's not a situation of, well, they fit them all together and then they paint them and then adjust the taper. No. So there's tolerances built in for that. Now, if you follow us on social media, you'll notice that Uncle Bob was talking about fitting ferrules together, and that when you line your blanks up, if that is 12 o'clock, this is your real seat, see it, 12 o'clock, you don't just line it up with your guides at 12 o'clock and just jam it right on there, right? You're actually going to come in at 9 o'clock and you give that quarter turn and lock it. And you might have to adjust it a little bit here or there. So that actually looks pretty good, right? I know I'm chasing you around there, Justin.
There we go.
But you know, you're new here, so I'm gonna put you through it. So then also, don't grab the guide and just untwist and pull it right off. Right? Okay. So when you put the rod blank on and you twist it on, you're actually grooving that ferrule just a little bit. Okay? And that is actually going to help it lock on. It's going to help minimize some wear, and it's going to help keep that rod blank from just coming apart prematurely. Okay? If you keep jamming it on, okay, I personally think, and you know what happens when I say those kinds of things. I personally think if you just continually straight jam your ferrules together, you're actually going to prematurely wear this, and you're actually can damage the inside of this section, because you're putting a little undue pressure on it and forcing it apart. When you force it apart and you're putting this, it's just a recipe for disaster, in my opinion. And it's not always going to fail, and it's not always going to cause a big problem. But in my opinion, if you put the ferrules together properly, they're going to wear a lot less, and you're going to have less chance of just an accidental coming apart or cracking a ferrule. Because I think people just, when they push them together like that, they just grit their teeth, right? And just push it together. And it's just got a better chance of causing a problem down the road. Yep. Anyway, that is the super long-winded question, or answer, which I am known for. So if you've been here for the last 98 episodes, you should know that.
So,
yes.
Stop you right there.
Uh-huh.
Winner has core wrapper already. Looks like we need to do a redraw.
Turn it loose. Tim, thank you for the,
What a guy. Thanks, Tim.
Yeah, Tim, still send me an email, though, because Hunter's going to get you a gift card for being honest and throw that in there. Tim, we appreciate that. So shoot live at mudhole.com, and we'll get you something anyway.
Cool.
Because you're still a winner, Tim. All right, here we go. Fire that thing back up.
I'm gonna laugh when he wins it again. Oh. Travis Sparks.
All right, Travis.
Facebook.
Better not have a core wrapper. Congratulations, Travis. Was that a little largemouth in there? Yeah, nice.
Good deal.
Excellent. All right, Travis. We'll go with you till we hear otherwise, right? But hey, at least, that's good to hear that Tim's already got a core wrapper.
That's awesome.
He already knows the deal. Fantastic. All right, so that was spining, and let's give it away. Let's talk about, and we already gave that away. So, wrapping ferrules.
Ferrule wraps.
Yeah.
So that's I wouldn't say it's a debate or a heated discussion.
Isn't it always, though, in rod building?
It seems like
Let's just go ahead and start arguing.
Right. Should you do it? Should you not do it? Is it necessary? I think is probably the better question there. When in fact it absolutely is. Anytime that you have a female ferrule, why not add a little bit of extra protection, a little bit more structural rigidity? I just made that up. But.
Okay, sure. Yeah. I think you had
But they
at
are
least
actually,
half of us.
They are very important. If you'll actually look at the male end of one of these sections, they are typically plugged. I'll stop right there.
Oh.
So that's obviously not a solid rod blank. This is usually plugged with either a piece of foam, a piece of rubber, whatever.
Pretty hard rubber, too.
Usually pretty hard rubber. If you ever come across a blank that does not have a male section plugged, I would definitely advise using something, whether it's, again, a piece of foam, piece of rubber, whatever you can manage to kind of plug up that section. It doesn't have to be very long, maybe just half an inch or so, just to give a little bit of structure at the end of that section. Essentially, you're adding a little bit of structure to just prevent any possibility of a failure happening there. Because let's be honest, that is the weakest part of this entire rod blank section. So the more you can add there, the more durable it will be. So.
Fantastic. So when we were talking earlier, people talk about wrapping ferrules like, oh no, what are we going to do? It's really just a guide wrap, okay? You're just not wrapping it over a guide. So what we do when we wrap ferrules is I try to get really close to the ferrule edge, okay? And if we were going to put it in actual measurements, I'm going to have to get the old digical out here because it's that close. And so I'm inside of 2 millimeters. I'm at 1.5 millimeters, right? So that's 0.0057. That's close. The reason that I want to be that close is it is going to keep you from splitting that ferrule. That's where the whole problem, in my opinion, is going to be, right? Is right at the edge. If you muscle up on this thing, you're going to want to open up that hoop strength on this female side of the rod blank. And when you do that, it's going to open and it's going to split. And then once that thing splits, good luck. Yes, you can repair it a little bit if you can catch it and cut that section out and rewrap and do all that. But why don't we just avoid all that and we'll put a ferrule wrap here, right? Now, there is a little bit of debate and such on how long should the ferrule wrap be, what size thread and all that stuff. The size thread I'm going to put on a ferrule wrap is going to be the exact size and everything that's on this rod blank. So don't freak out that, oh, I'm wrapping it in A and I need to wrap a ferrule in D or B or silk or whatever, because you don't have to do that. You can also do a ferrule wrap in just metallic. I know people will talk about sometimes like, oh, you don't want it to be, a guide wrap with metallic. Okay, whatever. You can do a ferrule wrap with metallic. You can do a guide wrap with metallic if you use the Pro FX, in my opinion. But, so anyway, having your ferrule wrap here. Now, I think I just saw the question fly by here. Steve, can you wrap a ferrule too tightly, causing it to be too tight? Steve, I think that you probably can, but if you maintain the same tension that you wrap on a guide foot and you have the ability to adjust your guide a little bit, just like you should with proper guide foot tension, you're not going to have any problem on your ferrule. There's really nothing to change. It should just fall right in line. You should be able to go from a ferrule to a guide, from a guide to a ferrule, and on down, right? Because it's really just a guide wrap. I personally like to see how close I can get to the edge of that. But I have a pretty steady hand and I'm good with my finish. You do have to be aware that you don't get finish that bridges that gap, because you can technically glue that rod section together. Now, is that the end of the world? Far from the end of the world, okay? But, some people like to put tape on this male side of the ferrule, things like that. I don't particularly like that. You can do that, but you just need to make sure that your ferrules are seated properly and then add your tape. Don't put tape down and then put your ferrule down. I know that sounds very like, well, yeah, who would do it like that? But make the ferrules together properly and then lay you down a piece of tape if you just got to. I don't think you need to, because I trust everybody out there that they're going to be diligent enough to not just and glue all of the rod pieces together. But so in terms of starting it and stopping it, there's a lot of times that you can, let me back this off because I got my thread tensioner. There are times where you can, I always go around twice. Go around twice and then overlap, and now we've started, right? The good news is, if I don't have this thing, if I don't have the tension turned up to 11, I can take one of my new burnishing tools, and I can actually, if I don't feel like I'm close enough where I want to be, I can actually just work this down as I go around it, okay? And get it nice and straight and get it way down there. And if you're not, familiar with measurements and rulers and such, you can imagine maybe the width of 3 turns of thread. Does that look about like that?
Yeah, pretty close.
2-3 turns of thread right there. Maybe a gap. What that does for me is that gives me just enough room to, when I am adding my finish, that I can get finish on that rod blank. Because if you've got it too far over and you don't get finish on the rod blank, I feel that you might not get it sealed off.
Correct.
As good. And you'll probably end up getting water underneath that finish at some point, and then it's going to cloud the finish and it's going to be whatever. So then from there, you're just going to wrap. You're just going to wrap your wrap, okay? Now, if you are nervous about being that close to the edge starting, this is one of those scenarios that you could actually, if you don't have a guide foot incorporated into your ferrule, like this one is not going to be. You see the guide foot's way out here. The reason for the guide foot's way out here is just because of the guide spacing. And this, to me, is way too much of a ferrule wrap to get that guide foot in there. That is a long way. Let me see how long that actually is, because I think that would just be ridiculous. Okay, so to the start of the guide foot, it's 2 full inches. To me, that's a little far. I would venture to say that 1 inch is going to be plenty. Sometimes I just give it about the width of my thumb, which is probably about 1 inch anyway. But one thing to keep in mind that I personally like to do, one of 2 things. I want all of my ferrule wraps to be the same width, okay? If they're not the same width, I want them to be decreasing as it goes down the rod blank. And by just like a smidge. Okay, because if you run one that's like 1.5 inches out here, it's not going to look so bad, on a 7 or an 8 or a 10 weight down here. But when you get out on that real thin last pieces section of a 4-piece fly blank, like 1.5 inch ferrule wrap is going to be like, ooh, that looks, 1, it looks ridiculous, and 2, I think it's a little overkill, right? So maybe the width of your thumb, and then maybe decrease it a little bit as you go out, or if it's me, I'm going to keep it the same. Now, typically, you are not going to have your first Let me back up a little bit. On a 9-foot, 4-piece fly blank, you are more than likely not going to have this first guide incorporated into this wrap. So this is the first section above the butt section. All following sections, you are almost guaranteed to have a guide wrap in your ferrule. So you need to keep that in mind as well. So if you only have this really, really teeny tiny ferrule wrap down here, like if I was only going to do like 6 turns down here, then your guide is going to start falling in it, and then you're only going to have, it's going to look weird, okay? So that's why we try to plan everything out before we start wrapping, and then also doing ferrule wraps. Because about the width of your thumb on a fly blank or some other, that's going to be enough to wrap some onto the rod blank, and then it'll give you room to jump up on your guide foot and finish that wrap.
Excellent.
All right? And then if you don't have a guide wrap, I don't know if I said this or not. If you do not have a guide in your ferrule wrap, you can actually start away from the ferrule and wrap towards the ferrule. We don't usually do that in a guide wrap and wrap down the foot. But if you feel like you can't get quite that close, you can. And honestly, if you want to cheat too, and if there is going to be a guide wrap and a ferrule wrap, and if you're good enough, you could wrap the guide and then wrap the ferrule separately, but meet them, and you probably won't notice it.
Yeah.
If you're using all the same stuff, I can almost guarantee you ain't going to notice it.
Yeah.
So if you really don't want to, if you just can't start it down there on that edge of that ferrule, and it's just giving you the fits, and you got a guide in it, you could wrap your guide and then come back in and wrap from the wrap and wrap to the ferrule, and you're probably going to be okay.
Yeah.
That's just a little bit of a cheat code.
More than one way to do it, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, we got a giveaway coming out, but one thing I did want to mention before we get into that is alignment dots, which are
we had a
fairly common on some of the popular factory rods that you see out there.
Yep.
You'll typically have a, and you can, we call it a dot, but honestly, it can be anything. You can do, I've seen feather inlays.
Tim Morrison. Do you use alignment dots, and what do you use to make them?
Yep. Honestly, you can use almost anything that is a visual representation of aligning 2 sections together.
For sure.
It can be a dot. Obviously, you need to do this on your male section and your female section, but it can be a China marker dot. It can be, like I said, a feather. It could be a feather inlay.
Piece of paint, or a little paint, right?
A little piece of paint. Options are endless. Whatever you guys want to come up with and be creative. But that is a good visual of aligning 2 sections together, and it is much faster, than trying to make sure you line up your tip section to your reel seat and all that good stuff. If you have those dots, you can line them up super quick and make it easy. And so that's something I would recommend if you guys are into that and get creative with it and come up with something cool.
Yeah, for sure.
But anyway, let's get on to the second giveaway.
Can I answer a question first?
Yeah, go for it.
Somebody said, so the ferrule wrap doesn't need to be the length of the insert. John, I'm assuming that you're talking about how far the male section goes inside of the female section. So this is the 3rd section. This is the 4th section of a fly rod blank. As I mentioned before, we got a guide that's falling on that wrap, okay? I'm going to hold my thumb here and pull this section apart, okay? So that's how much ferrule section is inside, okay? In my opinion, that is way more than you need in terms of a ferrule wrap, okay? So in reality, this guide could probably be slid towards the tip just a little bit, because if we're going to maintain like a thumb width, we could bump this up a little bit. If we're not, and keep in mind, just hold it right there, Justin. Keep in mind we've got this piece here. Yep. Oh, nice. All right, so we've got this piece here. I know. So we got this piece here that also has a guide on it, right? That one is just about a thumb width, but a smidge. As we work this direction, down the rod blank, if we want to decrease them a little bit, we don't need to adjust those guides. If we want to just a little bit, look, I'm going to be honest with you on adjusting this and freaking out if it's like, oh, well, you know, the guide spacing says that it's supposed to be at 45 and 13/16. And I would love to think that all of our rod builders at home can pick out 13/16 on a ruler or a tape measure, but I think we can all be honest with ourselves and say that you probably can't. Nothing wrong with that. Where I'm going with this is don't sweat it if we slide 2/16 or 1/8 of an inch guide. You're not just all of a sudden going to throw the rod in the river and say, forget that because I had to move it that little bit of a tiny distance to get that ferrule wrap to look really, really good rather than just think that snake guide at 13/16 is, you know.
Yeah. This isn't rocket science.
It's not. And again, I'm sure there's plenty of people that could do 13/16, but, you know, just don't sweat it. Just don't sweat it. So, anyway.
All right, so giveaway number 2 is going to be the, I'm going to show it off again, CRB Pro blank extension tool set.
Whew. Whew.
Might just send this one right here.
No, that's ours.
Oh, we got to keep this one?
Yeah. We're going to give a freshie.
So, if you guys do use multi-piece rod blanks, this is a cool set because it does come in 2 different diameters. So, you know, this will be for you guys that do the surf rods, any type of large OD rod blank. And then the smaller version is going to be, you know, your fly rods, your freshwater finesse 2-piece rods, 3-piece, etc., right? And essentially, I can't use that section, but I'll use this one. Think of this as a little extension piece. Works just like that. You could pop this end into a rod dryer that has, you know, the
Rubber chuck?
The rubber chuck, thank you. This little slit piece right here on the end will pop into that rubber chuck and rest in there nicely. So this will allow you to essentially, if you're working on this exact guide right here, this extension tool will get this section away from your rod dryer or hand wrapper or whatever it might be, and allow you to work on that guide that might be very close to that ferrule.
Yes.
Or if it's just the ferrule wrap itself. So these extension tools are super helpful, whether it's a rod dryer or a hand wrapper. You know, honestly, you could chuck this up into the RBS Pro here and it would work just fine. So,
you know, and I'm going to tell you, we have told everybody for the last 7 years not to do this kind of work on, you know, the antique dining room table. And having the blank extension tool, you know, is another great reason to not do that because you can work in a smaller area. You don't have to have all 9 foot of this track situation going on here. If you're limited space, you know, if you're just wrapping on a core hand wrapper, you know, and a rod dryer, you can do all of that and not have to have 9 to 12 foot of room if you want to build a fly blank. If you want to work in sections at a time, you want to dry the whole rod, but in 2 pieces, or if you're using just a 2-piece rod, that is a great tool to have because it just shortens your workspace. I mean, I don't really have a place that would be conducive to run, you know, all 4 sections of this track at a 9 foot, you know, you'd be walking around it, you'd be bumping into it, it would be a mess. You know, I don't need another reason to get yelled at home.
No, you do a pretty good job.
I do a fairly good job. You know, so I just don't need all that. Yep.
All right.
Cool.
Let's see who that lucky winner is.
Yeah.
Who do we got? Who do we got? Oh, Gary Pugh?
Pugh. That's what I would go with.
Gary Pugh.
Gary
on
Pugh.
Facebook.
Sweet. Congratulations, Gary.
You got a extension tool set coming your way, Gary.
Yep, live at mudhole.com. I'm going to hit this one here real quick. Edward Smith, I would agree with you. that I have also heard 1.5 times the diameter of the rod blank is a good measure for a ferrule wrap.
Oh, cool.
I would agree with that as well. I would also maybe, like I said, adjust it slightly to try to keep it, if you want it the same length, because depending on where you're at on the ferrules, 1.5 times down here might be like a little long, and then 1.5 times down here might be a little short. But that is an incredible, that gives a really hard number to exactly what we're talking about here. If measure it 1.5 times, and that's where you're at. If it starts to get into some weird numbers or whatever, or if you just want to keep it, the same, that's where I just say, use a thumb width or use this or use that. But yes, I would agree with you as well. I have heard the 1.5 times for years, and I'm sure it's been very successful for years. I don't have a problem with that at all. So thank you for reminding me about that as well. So, cool. We need to talk about guide placement.
Yeah.
And we talked about this a little bit.
We have. So I feel like maybe the best course of action here is we can go over a couple scenarios of where your guide placement might fall, and kind of maybe the action to kind of do after that. So let's go back to the first one you're working with here. So we've got, this is our first stripper guide. We've got it, what'd you measure, about 2.5 inches-ish, between 2 to 3 inches away to the edge of our guide foot.
It was 2 to the foot, and
two
so
to the
it's
foot?
probably 2.5 to the ring.
So from the edge of our female ferrule to the edge of the guide foot, it's about 2 inches.
And that's based on like printed MHX fly spacing.
Per guide spacing.
Correct.
Yep. In this scenario, like you mentioned earlier, we're not going to extend this ferrule wrap all the way to this guide wrap and make it all in one. That's just a little bit too far. It's not going to look very good. In this scenario, we would split those. You would do your ferrule wrap, which would be approximately about 1 inch, maybe a little bit more. So, falling in this range right here probably. And then we're gonna have a little separation there, and you're gonna start your guide wrap right down here somewhere.
So it would probably.
Something like, almost exactly like that.
So there you go.
So hypothetically, if you did extend this all the way and connect these two, in our opinion,
in my very unprofessional opinion, it would look ridiculous.
Might not look the best. It's a bit overkill. You don't need that excessive thread and epoxy and etc.
Sure.
Now, if we go with a scenario, back to our other section over here, I'm gonna break this down, make it a little bit easier to handle. Go back in the same spot here if this works.
Yep.
So in this scenario, we've got our snake guide. I'll go a little bit right there towards the middle. In this scenario, we have the snake guide is very, very close to the end of our ferrule. I'm talking, maybe 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch.
Okay.
In this scenario, I would absolutely, combine your ferrule wrap and your guide wrap into one. That's where it's going to make sense. Now, if this guide happens to fall per guide spacing, if this guide happens to fall right on your ferrule, right where the two sections join together, you're going to want to move that guide to the female side of the rod blank, or that section. You don't want to necessarily move it to the male side and be under or below that joint section. You want to be on the top side or the female side of that section.
I can literally almost think of never, ever, ever especially in a 4-piece. In a 4-piece 9-footer, I don't think I have ever seen a guide here. Now, I've seen a guide down over here on, I want to say, I have that 7/6 3-weight, and based on the rod lengths and the measurements and all that, a guide falls down here, but it would, I don't see it happening. Like, it's just, I would have to have almost all of the, like if the guide spacing fell on this joint, I would have to have more than half of this guide to be this side before I would bump it this way.
Yeah. And my hand's a little shaky there. I'm still holding this thing.
That water cup.
But
all that water, he needs more hydration.
You want to make sure that you leave a little bit of space. Am I still in frame there? Mm-hmm. A little bit of space between the end of your female ferrule and the end of your guide foot. You don't necessarily want to stack exactly like that. You don't want to stack the edge of this guide foot at the very, very end of your ferrule here. You want to give a little bit of gap, just like that.
You want some
rod
wraps.
right there.
You want some wraps on that blank before you jump up on it.
Yep.
You know, I mean, you don't need 20, but I'd like more than 2.
Yep.
You know, because it'll just help you get started anyway. You know, that's part of that. And then of course, what we were talking about earlier is, then now, when you're on the 4th section, you can tell this is some of the chatter in the group with guys talking about how long the ferrules come down here to the ferrule end, Justin. More to your right, my left. Thank you, sir. Bing, that's it. So you can kind of see here, I opted, because the guide is actually getting smaller and the blank diameter is going down, I actually opted to shorten the wrap up just a little bit. And I think it looks clean that way as well. So this is the 4th section, this being the 3rd section, and then that section back behind me that does not have a guide in the ferrule wrap. It's about that length there. But this one did get a little bit smaller, and I did it on purpose because I did drop, pretty good in terms of guide sizing. So I just thought it, game time decision. So, yeah.
I think that mostly covers guide spacing as it relates to ferrules. Obviously the big one being there is make sure you do your ferrule wraps on each female ferrule. If the guide is a little bit far away, you can split those up and do separate wraps. If your guide lands on that joint, you definitely want to go to the top side of that on the female section or the female side.
Right.
That covers it. You got anything else as it pertains to?
I don't really think so. This is a 2-piece where this wrap, sometimes when you have a 2-piece, you can go a little more decorative and get a little more action going with your ferrule wrap here. Jake's doing a really nice job here because he's just adding a little bit of flair to it. With this high frame guide setup, I would be less likely to move these guides like more than maybe an 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch, because we're matching a spinning reel to a guide train for optimal performance. So this is where, granted, if you move it 1/8, you probably will move it 1/8 on accident without even noticing, going from marking it with a China marker and a ruler to wrapping it. I mean, we all bob and weave a little bit there, but if you start to move a high frame guide train, if you start to move stuff an 1/2 inch or so, it's going to affect your performance, and that is literally the last thing that we want to do with these type of guides, right? Just the way that some of those guides in that train will fall on a 2-piece. The fly rod and the 4-piece, you can almost, I could go across 20 manufacturers and all the different type of rods, and even if you just go to the resources tab at Mudhole and you look at the MHX fly rod spacing for a 9-foot fly blank, it's going to have, with fly spacing, most of the time it's the length of rod plus 1, and that's your guides. So whereas when powers and actions and things change with spinning and casting rods, you sometimes have to add and remove guides and stuff like that. Fly rods aren't necessarily the same. If you've got a 9-foot 8-weight, you're probably going to have 10 guides on it, and they're going to be almost identical in spacing, very close. If you got a 9-foot 3-weight, You're not going to have 3 more guides, or you're not going to have any more guides. You're still going to have 10 guides. They're still going to be relatively close, and that's why you're going to see that spacing. But when you get into a 3-piece travel blank or a 2-piece travel blank, and you start adjusting like guide heights, is it casting, is it spinning, is it all this? Those guides are going to be all over the place. So whereas the fly blank is just kind of like, you know, that's you can pretty much do that in your sleep. Some of this starts to get a little close and, you know, picky because, so for example, this is the second section on the 3-piece travel blank. So you can see we've got our ferrule wrap, and then we got a pretty good space here, right? And then this is the tip section. And we've got approximately the same ferrule wrap length. I know the gray's a little hard to see, but then the guide is up from it. So that guide spacing was done off of the chart, and then we did a static deflection on our deflection graph over here, and we just moved it a little bit. But none of the guides fell on the ferrule wrap, so we didn't have anything to worry about. But we still needed ferrule wraps. So, yep. What else? Anything else? There is a lot of questions in here. So our 7 minutes in heaven tonight is going to be still 7 minutes, but it's going to be rapid fire to say the least. So it's been an hour and 12. I don't want our Hot Pockets to get any colder. So Uncle Phil, you want to go ahead and hit that, it's time for rapid fire Q&A? How about that?
Rapid fire
There it is.
Q&A.
Getting on near there. You know, Uncle Phil, we didn't even show off your Hawaii ride. We'll do that at the very end. All right, throw that timer up. Let's get after it. We talked about alignment dots. What about overall durability of the ferrules? How do you feel about that? You pretty comfortable with that?
Yeah, pretty good. Obviously, do your ferrule wraps, and yeah, shouldn't have any issues.
No. Kevin, what about the weight? Is the weight much difference from a one-piece?
No, actually they're very comparable. You know, a multi-piece blank might be a little bit heavier, but honestly, they're extremely close.
Yeah, I mean, if we're just looking at this ferrule section here is 2 inches. If we're just talking about an extra 2 inches on a 2-piece or 6 inches of rod blank on a 4-piece, and the whole blank only weighs like 2 ounces,
yeah,
it ain't going to be that much, right? Let's see. You got a travel blank you would recommend for pitching up to 16 ounces?
Ooh,
I don't think we're quite there yet.
Can't say that we do. I think
John, I'm sorry, but that is certainly something that you're gonna make us think about.
Yeah.
I caught a muskie what was it, last summer? It was a blast. We got to do that. This is good from Sam. Any tips on separating the ferrules if they get stuck? And then he put in parentheses, without damaging the blank.
Of course.
We got you, Sam. We got you. Okay, so I've been on a number of exotic destination trips with fly rods, and sometimes fly rods get stuck. A lot of times fly rods get stuck. If you're going somewhere where you're coming in and out of the heat, and it's like heat and AC and all this, and you're doing a lot and things are going on, I will put like a little bit of wax on the ferrules, and I'm talking like light. And if you can't find anything, the old school way I was taught was to take the male ferrule, put it on the side of your nose, not in your nose, on the side of your nose, and just give it like a little 360 move. You could probably put it on the side of your face. It just needs a little bit of oils from your face or your skin. Then put it together, you lock your ferrules. If you're having trouble, and then Sam, to your question, if you're having trouble getting it apart, I have tried a little bit of hot water. I have also tried cold water and ice. Most of the time, what's going to do it is a temperature change and then taking the rod blank and holding, hang on. All right. It's probably going to be these 2 pieces, right? What you have to be careful of is pulling on it and then racking your hand on this guide, and then you're going to damage this guide. So what I try to do is sit down, and I know I can't really do this here in the studio. Sit down, put your knees together tight. put the rod blank behind your knees. So if these are your knees, go behind your knees, right? Grab the rod like this, grab the rod like that, and lock your hand on as tight as you can and spread your knees apart. And as you're doing that, concentrate on twisting the rod blank just a little bit, because sometimes it's hard for people to pull apart and twist at the same time. But if you're using your legs to push apart and you're concentrating on trying to give a little bit of a twist in your hand, because you should have twisted the ferrules together to begin with, the legs are going to be given enough pressure going either direction, and then your hands are going to be given a little bit of a twist. And after you do that, before you get into position, get some ice on it or run a little hot water on there, because what's happened is it's just worked its way together. So yeah, that's the longest answer that we've done in a 7-minute. So how long? Burnishing tool. Sensitivity. We actually answered a lot of questions on the way there. Do you put all of the sections together to apply finish? Or what do you like personally? Because I know you showed us the tool.
I personally like doing multi-piece rods separately.
Okay.
And that's just because typically I'm not working on a full lathe, so it's just a hand wrapper or just a single rod dry or whatever. So I typically like to wrap them separately. That might seem kind of weird or crazy, but.
Do you have any specific rod guides that you would recommend for travel use or just personal preference? Because I have an answer.
I would go with the TFW 842. I think that's a very...
rod guides.
Sorry,
guides.
that was blank.
No.
I would go the LZRs or SSRs, either one of those.
Yeah.
I know that's kind of different extremes, but SSRs are going to be very durable.
Yeah.
If you're traveling, you don't want to run into any broken ring scenarios or damaged guides.
That's a great point.
SSRs would be probably the better version of the two, but obviously LZR has some performance benefits.
Really good durability.
Yeah.
I personally like to build a travel rod in as close to the exact specifications as my one-piece blank that I would use at home. I want to try to keep it the same. The handle you can build the same, the guide train, the guide spacing, all that the same. If I know, though, this is a great point, if I know that I'm going somewhere that is, I'm going to be in a hairy situation, I'm putting SSRs on it, because I am not going to go halfway to wherever and then get there and take a tumble and end up with a broken guide, ring, or something like that. So SSRs, you're just not going to do that. Where did that question come from? Double wrap? Was it on here? Somebody said, is it okay to double wrap a ferrule for more strength? Keith, to be honest with you, one wrap is really all you need. I don't think 2 wraps is going to add enough more strength.
Because honestly, the thread is doing its job there, but you got to think this also has finish on top of the thread, which is giving just as much durability and structure as the thread is itself. So,
and the rod blank really isn't any less strong right there. The only thing that you have to worry about is that the little part splitting if you're applying too much force to it, or if you don't seat the ferrule properly and the ferrule starts to come apart, and then it flexes right there and it's not seated, acting as one piece, and then it's got 2 pieces fighting against, that's when that ferrule blows out. And wrapping it twice is not going to help you there. I am sorry. Question, Owen, does it matter what type of thread do you use on the ferrule wrap, nylon versus color fast?
nope, does not matter.
Use the same one. Whatever it is on your rod build. So if you're wrapping with all color fast or all nylon or all whatever, I would just do that. I still probably wouldn't use color preserver, but you know how to slide that in there. So the last 98 episodes I did, but so yeah. What else did we talk about? I think that's it, right?
I think that's going to wrap it
I
up.
don't think we missed anything.
We need to do our last
We
giveaway.
need to do the last giveaway.
So we're going to do a travel rod kit, essentially of your choice. Chris is going to help you pick out maybe something that's going to work for you, depending on what you fished for or maybe where you're going to vacation this summer.
Yeah, for sure. I'm not gonna stick you with a, a trout rod if you really are gonna go somewhere and chase bass and you need something else. So yeah, we'll work on that. That's the once you win it live at Mudhole, that's where you'll do it.
Cool. Well, let's see who the grand prize winner is.
Uncle Phil, that really came out nice, buddy.
Is that
TR903-3.
Oh yeah.
Keith. Oh, fantastic. Get you that one. Phil's already laughing.
All right, give me a second on this one. Keith Raynoel. Ugh. Keith, you got me on that one.
Keith, congratulations.
Sorry,
There it is.
I butchered that one.
Keith, send me an email at live@mudhole.com. And if you want to add in the proper pronunciation of your last name, I will forward that to Hunter
Yeah,
so that we don't run into another situation like we just did. Oh, Uncle Phil, speaking of your rod, if you don't have a rod case, all right? So Phil texts us, you were ready to go to the airport, right? Did you bring it? So Phil's ready to go to pack to go to Hawaii, and he's like, I don't know what I'm going to put this rod in. And I'm like, okay, well, that's not good. So he's like, would you just put it in your checked bag? My first answer was no. But second, I was like, well, what are you putting the rod inside before you putting it in the checked bag? And he said, well, that's what I'm worried about. And I'm like, well, if you just think that you're going to put a fishing rod in a duffel bag or his wife's suitcase and send it down under the plane and expect it to get to Hawaii like in less than in 9 pieces, that's where we're at. So the good news is he kept his blank armor box, cut the blank armor box, taped it up, and we're happy to say that it made it to Hawaii and back in his suitcase in a cut down blank armor box for a rod tube. So that is the last tip of the evening that we will leave you with. If you just so happen to get in a bind and you really, really need, Edward's already asking about a blooper segment in episode 100. Somebody in the war room just put that comment up and is excited, I'm sure. We didn't have any bloopers. This is all live. It's all very professional.
Right.
So anyway, all right, well, congratulations to all of the winners. Thank you for joining us tonight for episode 99. We have the next show is coming up. What is the date on that? July 25th, okay? So July 25th is going to be the 100th episode. So for all of y'all that have stuck with us for 7 years, I would be really curious to see if anybody has been here from the first one till now. I know that there's yeah, right. I know that there are a few. I can promise you there's going to be some treats in terms of visual treats in episode 100.
Plenty of things to laugh at.
I can promise you we're gonna have to have plenty of water for that to get through that episode. So I think you guys are going to be, well, I know you'll be impressed at how far we've come, but just for the sheer sake of seeing what we were all putting together 7 years ago and even 5 years ago and 4 years ago and all that stuff till now, I don't even know. There's just no words of how good that it's gone from June 6th of 2016 until June 27th of 2023. So it's pretty wild. We were in a room. So this studio that we're shooting in is quite large. The studio that we were shooting in before was not a studio, and we'll talk about this on the next show. But it was, I've seen walk-in closets bigger in very small houses that were bigger than where we were at. So we had to do a lot of multi-piece shows because we didn't have enough room to have a one-piece in there. But you should come by for the next episode because Hunter looks like he's 12 in the episodes. I know we don't look all that old, but Hunter especially looks very underage in those episodes.
It's true.
So anyway, thank you guys very much for joining us. To everybody in the war room tonight, I know Steve was in there. I'm going to mention Sean. Sean was not here tonight, but he has been here for so many others. He said, make sure not to give me credit for being here tonight because I'm not going to be here tonight. But I got to mention you anyway. So we had Hoffma in the war room working stuff at home. Of course, we got Birdman as well. And Jake is in there too. I'm sure he's been throwing up some really good links. I've been seeing those come through. We had Justin here on the Zoom cam. Uncle Phil on the 1s and 2s, and of course Hunter, my left-hand man. I don't know what episode you started at, but it was really, really early. It was
5 to 10, somewhere in that
It
range.
was. So you've done. We'll call it. You've done 90.
Yeah.
With me. Good.
It's been quite a ride.
All right, everybody. We'll get you out of here. It's 3 minutes before 8. Go enjoy your Hot Pockets and have a cold one on us, and we'll see you for episode 100 next month.
See you next time.